Hi TBN family and welcome to TBN Meets. Today I am joined by the manager of the Ealing Soup Kitchen, Andrew Mcleay. Now the Ealing Soup Kitchen is a charity who seeks to help anyone who needs hot, nutritious food and a helping hand. The Soup Kitchen is made up of different church teams from across the Ealing borough, and I'm really glad today to welcome Andrew Mcleay to the call. Hi Andrew, how are you?
Hi, I'm great, Emily. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me from home. So due to the lockdown, we can't be in the studio yet. So thank you so much for being on this call with me today.
No problem.
So let's start with the soup kitchen. So how did the Ealing Soup Kitchen first start?
So it started in 1973, and basically a bunch of churches in the area noticed that the homeless situation was getting worse. So they decided cumulatively to come together and do something about it. So initially we had a van in the street, which was outside Maddock Lane, St. John's in Ealing, where we were basically serving soup and stuff from the back of a van. And then pretty soon the police moved us on and said, you know, you can't be serving people on the streets without a license. So then we came together and decided that it was best to do it from a church premises. And from about 1974 onwards, it's been sort of hosted solely at St. John's. And yeah, all of the churches that were involved, they basically take a weekend each, and then they do soup and they serve it from St. John's. So yeah.
Amazing. And how many churches are involved?
So at the moment, I think it's 6. Normally it's 7 or 8. But yeah, so it's all local churches, and most churches in the area, I would say, at some point in our history, have been on team. But you know, as you can be aware with Christian ministry, often things are seasonal. So sometimes people go off the rotor and then come back on. Yeah, at the moment we've got about 6 churches.
Amazing. And you guys offer more than just food. What other services do you have available at the Soup Kitchen?
Yeah, so we about 12 years ago, we sort of thought to ourselves we need to do a bit more than soup, and so we started a Friday hub. And it's like a drop-in center. So basically, we have a hairdresser there who will come and cut their hair. We give away free clothes, and also practical items. So things like sleeping bags, tents, even things like mobile phones and credit and Oyster cards, whatever they really need, we can provide. We've also got laptops there so they can check their internet or apply for jobs. We've also got a shower and a whole bunch of other different things. So we've got things like GP care, lawyers that come down and look at cases, and people who literally will wash the feet of the guests. So it's kind of biblical in that sense.
Yeah, amazing. And how many people do you see on average coming through the Soup Kitchen each week?
So it's about 400 a week.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. That is incredible. And is it around 400 people that you're providing food for that per week as well, including all of those services?
Yeah, it's close to that. So we get different days have different numbers of people coming. Right. The weekends it's generally sort of 70 to 90, but it can be sort of 150. Equally, it can be 50. Then on the Fridays, it's usually about 70 to 90 as well. And then we've just started a Monday night recently, and that gets to 120 or so per evening. So yeah.
Wow. And when did you first get involved with the Soup Kitchen?
So I got involved back in sort of 08, 09. So I was homeless briefly myself. And I'd heard about the Soup Kitchen and the good work they did. So I kind of went in and saw what was happening and saw the good work they did. And at this time, I moved over from Sydney and didn't have to get a job straight away. So I ended up volunteering with them. So I joined the St. John's Church team where I cooked for about a year and a half. And my cooking isn't the best, to be fair, but it was more just, you know, that was something that I had lots of time and I had lots of enthusiasm, so that's what I did. Yeah, I did that, and then I also taught an art class on a Friday because I wasn't working. Then I ended up getting a normal job, as it were, and then after that job, I then started working full-time at the Soup Kitchen.
Amazing. And, with the recent pandemic, which has affected nations all around the world, and definitely here in the UK, how has the soup kitchen changed during this season?
I'd say that the structure of it has changed quite dramatically. So, but it's a little bit like, it's kind of odd because it's sort of like watching the history of the soup kitchen in a sense, because when we first started with the pandemic, nobody, and I mean nobody, no government, nobody knew what was going on. And so the government guidelines were so sort of thin and wafery, um, and the church just wanted to honor that. So they just closed the building straight away. And we're thinking, okay, fine, we're sunk. We won't exist anymore for this period. And then when we realized actually we are kind of key workers and we can do a little bit more, that opened it up. So when we first started doing it, we had something like 25 clients a day.
Mhm.
And now we're probably seeing 100 a day at every service,
Wow.
and maybe more actually, because we're also doing home delivery stuff. So we're probably serving close to 600 people a week now, because we've got loads of different things that go on. So we started because we aren't able to do things like helping people with housing or giving people showers anymore, or clothes. We've just done takeaway. So basically, we set up a trestle table on the street, and then people can come along and get their food. And we've been collaborating with businesses and restaurants and charities to provide that food. So then it's just easier for us, but also for our volunteers, because we really want to stick to that 2 meter distancing thing.
Yeah.
And then when we realized how many people were vulnerable and how many people were suffering, we thought, why don't we extend out our services to sort of families who might be stuck indoors, or they can't get out, or they got one of those dreaded NHS letters, which my mum has. And we thought, well, let's try and extend out our services. So we got drivers and we made up takeaways, and then we go around to various people's houses all around the borough and even outside the borough to try and support them.
That is amazing. And Andrew, can you share with us any stories or testimonies of how you've seen God move during this season with the recent pandemic?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, there's the two facets of it, because there's the takeaway stuff that we do, which is really important to so many, because 80% of soup kitchens in London have shut down. So there's only 20% of us. So we're basically having to fill sort of that extra 80% of the need. So we're getting lots more people coming back saying, this food, you've got no idea how much it means to me. Whereas before, it was a little bit easier for people to go and get what they needed. Whereas now in this pandemic, there's no one about, and there aren't places open. So it's been a real blessing seeing how much that's really meant to the guys and girls who use our service, and that's been really amazing. And another cool story is one of the guests that used to come to our soup kitchen. We haven't seen him since the pandemic, and but we know where he lives, so we went round to his flat just to see if he was okay, because he's a vulnerable adult. And it turns out the police had taken him to ICU because he's developed coronavirus, and so we were quite shocked by this and thinking, okay, what can we do? Because we didn't think he had any family. And so I informed a few people, and then his brothers came out of the woodwork, and it turns out he hasn't spoken to his brothers for about 40 years. And so there's been like a reconnection on their behalf. So they live in different countries. So they've been sort of speaking over Skype through the hospital and stuff. And we've developed a relationship with his family too. And I think that's just so amazing. It's one of these things where like you can really see God in it, where there's this awful tragedy happening, and loads of people are talking about all these horrible deaths, but in the midst of that, God's working these little miracles in people's lives, and really sort of reconnecting people that normally wouldn't have given the time of day. Because I mean, this guy, he's been estranged from his brothers for 40 years.
Wow.
Which is just insane. And so now there's this sort of level of respect and care, and it just seems like, wow, God's really in that. And there's been other people who we've been able to house, because not everybody is housed yet, unfortunately. So there've been people who've been phoning me up, and it's quite horrendous taking a call from somebody when they're out on the streets and saying, please just help me, I'm so cold, I just need to get indoors. And you being sort of slightly helpless to help them. because we've got to rely on the council to do that, because the council are paying all the hotels to put them up. So we've got to rely on them doing their job. And I'm a little bit of a control freak in a way, and I shouldn't be. And that's something that I'm praying about, but it's something that, God just lifted from me a little bit. And so he's been helping a lot of the guys that we've been dealing with. And that's been really, really lovely to see them kind of come back and say, thank you so much for helping me with this. Like, honestly, I was so cold outside. I don't think I would have lasted. And just hearing that is just sort of an amazing feeling, knowing that we've got this, that God's given us this amazing power to really impact someone's life. Because food is, and our name is Ealing Soup Kitchen, and that's what we do. But food is like it's like the catalyst to start everything. It's like, when you go out with your friends, you go out and you eat food, but the cool stuff happens whilst you're eating, and that's what Jesus used to do. He used to meet with his friends and eat, and that's where he discussed his sort of important business.
Yeah.
And so for us, a lot of the food stuff is about us getting them in and getting the trust in, and then them opening up and then telling us what they really need, and then God enables us to be able to help them, which is amazing.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And have you found an increase or decrease in the donations that you've been getting from the public?
So interestingly enough, we've received an increase. And I know a lot of charities are suffering at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think we've always been, I'm fairly hot on social media, partly because I don't have a lot of time. I'm the only paid member of staff for this charity. So I don't have loads of time to organize events and stuff, because the charity runs almost 5 days a week. I've got to be there for everything. And then I've got to, manage volunteers, manage guests, and, whatever else that entails. Sometimes even cook myself, which is, the clients are definitely in for a treat when that happens. But yeah, I think, so because we're quite good at social media, there's a lot of people out there who support us. And that's partly why when we started doing our home deliveries, it's why we're trying to deliver as much to the community as possible, because the community, as much as the churches support us, there's loads of people within the community who see what we're doing and support us financially too. So we've been finding these kind of revenue streams that are kind of surprising, and it's just another amazing gift from God, because these days food is a bit more expensive than it used to be. At least it feels that way when we're buying it. And there's only certain places we can buy food from, because when you're buying for sort of 100 people, you can't get everything at like Tesco's anymore. You have to sort of be a bit careful. So we have to buy from sometimes from posh places like Waitrose. And that obviously that costs more, but God's just been providing the whole way through. So yeah, even though we are paying more out now, because we're also buying PPE and just buying whatever we can to try and sort people out, sort volunteers out, sort drivers out, whatever we can do, we're trying to get. But it is costing us more per week now. But God is good, and He's just providing for us. So we're so thankful for that.
Yeah, that's good. And how has it been with your volunteers, in this time when we have to take those social distancing measures? What's it been like?
So, it's, I just feel so blessed, honestly. Like I've been doing this for a few years now, and part of the problem seems to always be that you're never quite sure what you're going to get. And sometimes you get great volunteers, and sometimes you get anxious volunteers, and sometimes you spend a lot of time with one volunteer just sort of trying to build them up. But it's like all of the volunteers are on the same page, and they're all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Great.
And they are all just coming together and just doing what needs to be done. So I, as the manager, am so proud of all of the things that people are doing, because they're on it with the PPE, they're on it with the social distancing, and I genuinely was a little bit like, because a lot of homeless people don't tend to follow rules because they're not used to it. So asking them to do 2 meters distance, that's hard for them. But because they respect a lot of our volunteers, they will do that because they know we're doing it for them. We've always been in it for them. And God has sort of really provided that for us. So that's amazing.
That is good to hear. And what's it been like for you personally as the manager in this time?
Anxious. I've been very, very anxious and very kind of worried. I had a few sleepless nights, because particularly when I realized that the homeless weren't being housed as quickly as they should have been, that kind of upset me a little bit, because in the olden days, we've got before Corona, we had places we could put people.
Yeah.
Now that all of that is shut, it's a brave new world, you know,
Yeah.
and we're basically having to rely on people we've never had to rely on before. So it is a real kind of a test of faith in a way as well, because we're sort of like, oh, is God going to be able to provide for us? And so it has been really anxious, but I've just been so lucky that so many of my volunteers they're super committed. And, you know, and I was really worried about, because I put some of them in charge of various different days. And I've been worried, you know, is it going to be too much for them because there's so many things going on right now? But honestly, they are just on it. They're so on it. And it's really encouraging and amazing to see. And I know that the trustees feel the same. I think they had a great sense of worry when the whole Corona thing happened, and they really wanted to help and for us to keep going. But no one knew how to do it. And the answer was just do it, you know, walk out in faith. A little bit like, you know, just walk on that water and then, you know, God will provide. And that's kind of what we had to do. Yeah. Basically just do it and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, well, we'll try something else. And that's what we've been doing. And we're just very, very lucky.
That's really good to hear. And, you know, there might be people watching who, you know, living all across the UK and wanting to help during this time. What advice would you give to someone who, you know, might be in their community and wanting to help their local food bank or their local soup kitchen? What can they do?
Well, the first thing you can do is pray for us. That's the first thing you can do, because that's really important, and that those sorts of things do matter. And it means that we're able to, on top of doing things, I think there's a sense when people pray of expectation, but also like you can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it, you know, you can feel people behind you and you can feel the momentum. So that's really important. And also, you know, if people want to volunteer, we're always looking for people now. So even though we have less staff on site at each session, because we have to, because of the social distancing, and because we're sort of doing a lot less in a sense.
Yeah.
But there's loads of jobs that we still need doing. There's loads of things that, like, there's loads of admin stuff we need doing. There's driver roles. There is help with volunteering and packing and things like that. So if they want to get involved, they can find us on any of the social media channels or email me. Hopefully you guys can provide some of the details of that. And yeah, they can get in touch, and I'm very happy to have a chat with them, and we'd love to, you know, their support. The main thing I think is prayer, and just this is an interesting time because, you know, it's a time where instead of us thinking about our careers, we're now thinking about our next door neighbors, and we are genuinely thinking about people more than we used to, because we don't have like people walking behind us that are too slow or whatever. We don't have the annoyances of everyday life kind of consuming us right now. So we're all sort of thinking to ourselves altruistically in a way. And I think it's really important that we continue this way. It's really important that we keep thinking kindness of others. And this is kind of another reason why we feel so blessed. It's because God in this time is really changing the hearts of lots of people too. So we're seeing a lot more people sort of relying on their faith than they would have done. There's a lot more people that are questioning, and questioning is good in a way. Like, you know, at least they're talking to God. You
That's
know?
conversation.
Yeah, and I think just having that conversation is really great. So, and I think that's happening with a lot of our guests too. I think a lot of our guests are feeling like, this is such a strange time. Why is it happening to me? Whereas before they wouldn't have necessarily needed to confront that. And I think so. It's really about sort of prayerfulness and then thoughtfulness. And then, you know, if you wanted to get into some action, come and speak to me.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Andrew. And I think it's so true. Like you said, for us, this is a season when people are not worried about, you know, what their job entails necessarily or the next future, but it's the neighbors, it's the people around us, you know, checking in on those on our street and really making sure they're okay and showing kindness to each other. So that's really important.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today just to tell us about the work of the Ealing Soup Kitchen. And, you know, as you mentioned as well, we'll have all the information on screen for how people can get involved with it if they so wish to. So we wish you all the best, and we're praying for you. We're praying for all of your volunteers and all of those that will be coming to the Soup Kitchen each and every day. And we just pray a blessing over all of the work that you and all the 6 churches are doing during this time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah, God bless you too. And thank you to our viewers at home for watching. Until next time on TBN Meets, goodbye.